The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondell.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondell. I'm excited tonight because we have a young music mogul with us, Derrick McMichael out of the D.C. area. He is the founder of LOUDMusic. It's a platform that helps young musicians and indie artists start their career, and just something that we really wanted to have him on the show to talk about. So welcome to the show, Derrick.
Hey, Dave. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, Derrick, I know we kind of talked a little bit before we started recording, but one of the things that, that caught my eye was, your platform that you started, because, I know that you've interned at some major labels, which I think is a great experience. But when you're in the independent space like you are right now, you understand that, the indie artists really need all the help that they can get. The budgets are low. Sometimes there's no budgets at all, but there's a lot of talent out there. So to have people like you out there that are trying to help these artists get to the next level, I think it's noble, and I think it's something that's well needed out there. So talk about your LOUDMusic platform and what people can expect by that.
Sure thing, David. With LOUDMusic, it's a platform that's there to help artists really start their music career, and that's really what we focused on as a team. Was what were the necessities for artists in a modern era that labels may not provide nowadays. What we've noticed was that a lot of the independents who were coming our way, they were missing a lot of the online assets that differentiated them from a lot of the competition. They were waiting for managers or labels to come into the picture and create their merchandise for them, create the different channels and outlets for them to start communicating with their fans. That wasn't through an Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. So we decided to be that middleman and help artists differentiate themselves, start really their career. So that way, if a label was looking at them, they might take them more serious, or if the label wasn't looking at them, they can actually start monetizing their career and have an actual career in comparison to sadly for a lot of people, it might be more so of a hobby, and we want to make it a solid career for them.
One of the things you mentioned is something that I talk about a lot, and I think it's when an independent artist, when they start their career, I think one of the things that they think they're going to get there on their talent alone, and a lot of times they don't understand the business aspect of the record business or the recording business, and that's where I think a lot of people fail, is they're not business people besides being artists. And the people that I think are successful are the people that actually take their career as serious as a business person would. So talk a little bit about that. And you talked about monetizing their projects, but also talk about the importance of licensing and copywriting. Is this something that you can also help with?
Oh man, it's copywriting, licensing. It's huge. It's if you don't have your licensing done properly, then your music really can't reach the masses. We've seen songs that kind of slip through the cracks, but then they end up getting pulled. You can't stay on any of the digital stores unless your licensing is done properly. So we think that is crucial. And one of the things is that we do at LOUDMusic is we help artists with their licensing issues. If they're having trouble getting their songs properly cleared, we can help them with that outreach. If they need instrumentals that are properly licensed, so that way they can keep creating music and make sure it gets out there and take it to another level. Where we have a A&R curated beat store with radio ready sounds that in proper licensing already taken care of, so you can get that done. And then if you happen to be a cover song artist and you need to have your cover songs released onto the platforms and you're having trouble licensing there, we can help you with all the licensing for cover songs as well, and make sure that you can be properly represented on all the digital streaming platforms.
And you're a young guy. I mean, you're what, 26 years old?
Yes, 26 years old.
I mean, 26 years old, and when did you kind of start getting into the music business, music period? I mean, when did you start liking music, and when did you start playing music, and how did this all start?
Oh man, Dave, music Music is part of my life. I love music. It's I can't even tell you when it started because it was that long ago when I was so young. To be honest, first started learning how to read music in pre-kindergarten, and started playing instruments in kindergarten. My foundations in percussion, where I drummed and learned how to play the marimba and the xylophone, and did that for years. Was in multiple private ensembles, and I think it was in high school around 17 where I decided that I wanted to be in the music industry. That was the path for me. And I didn't really know what to do. I knew people who were in music, but not specifically the business of music. And it's to me, the only way to get into it was to dive headfirst and start calling up studios and labels. And I spent most of 17 just calling up different record companies, labels, music studios. At that time, I thought if it was an awesome studio with plaques on the wall and the pictures, it was just as good as a label. I didn't really understand the difference myself.
Right.
I knew the difference between what a label and the studio did, but to me, just being in the industry was the focus. And eventually that landed me an internship in the industry at Harvey Mason Media. I got to learn a lot of awesome things there. And that put me in a position where I got to be an in-house engineer and producer at Cook Up Records, and moved from there to engineering and tutoring in Ableton at Blue Room Productions, and engineering over at Soundgate Studios, and multiple other record labels, independent labels, bigger labels, studios. I kind of just bounced around in all the different areas that I could be at, until eventually LOUDMusic was formed, because the independent artists kept coming to me saying, "Hey, could you help me with my career? Could you manage me?" And it just seems to me like a lot of these artists didn't really need a manager. They just needed some guidance. Yeah. And that was why we created LOUDMusic. We wanted to be there to guide them. Mm-hmm. And the best way to do that at a massive level was to create a platform, a SaaS application, which offered all the tools that a lot of these artists were missing, mm-hmm. but in a organized format, mm-hmm. where it was streamlined and could make a lot of sense. It didn't require a whole lot of education in terms of the industry, and trying to, we really focus on trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah. So if you're going to tell me in one sentence, if you're going to pitch your company to me, high level, what would you say? I mean, what's the overall function and goal of LOUDMusic? What would you say in one sentence?
I would say I'll give you the sentence, but little bit before that.
Yeah.
But realize a lot of services are focused purely on distribution.
Sure.
And they say that that's what's necessary to actually be heard. And then as an artist, as you get out there and you realize, no, I have to focus on multiple other things in the business to make sure that my music is licensed properly, can stay up on the market, all the way to connecting with the fans and making sure they actually notice you on the market, because there's over 60,000 songs being uploaded every day. You have to stand out. It's very oversaturated. So what we do, instead of focusing on making sure that you're in the market, we make sure that you get noticed in the market. What we do at LOUDMusic is we make sure that you're heard. So you can be heard.
Perfect.
Be loud.
Yeah. Very, very good. I mean, I love that. And the one thing also that you said is, how do you set yourself apart? And if anybody, all my listeners know I talk about this on almost every show to independent artists that come on my show, and I get various answers, but the one question I always ask is, what sets you apart that's going to make me listen to you versus the 1,000 other people that are on the streaming platforms out there? When you talk about the rap artists and hip hop and pop and some of the popular mainstream artists out there, I mean, it's saturated, like you just said. That you perfectly stated that. So how do you get people that come to you? I mean, how do you get them to stand out from the other artists? I mean, what can you do to provide that, or to help provide that, or guide them into thinking that way, because I think not enough people think that way, what's going to make you stand out? So how do you guys do that?
Well, the first thing that we do is we make sure that the basics are taken care of, and it might sound like the prerequisite, but, a lot of people have missed that step. A lot of people are in a position where when a song goes out, they don't have the support to just get a typo fixed, So that's the very first thing that we do is we provide very good, very solid customer support for our distribution support. Not just distribution support, we have a full support team and center that's dedicated to making sure that if you have something like a typo, if you want to update an album cover, if you want to update a song because you like mastered version of the track mastered version number 2 better than mastered version number 3, which is what got uploaded, we can get that changed. All right. So that's the very first thing that we do, which we realize is very, very powerful for an artist and puts them in a position where they've already set themselves apart from a lot of their peers. All right. Because everything starts at a local level. How do you set yourself apart from the other local artists? Right. The next thing that we do is we set them up with music friendly, like a musician friendly website. A lot of these sites that are out there right now, the different site builders, they're all set up for e-commerce and real estate and things like that. And what we see is a lot of artists, when they start really building their online presence and putting themselves in a position where they can present themselves properly, because, there's regulations and rules with Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You want to be in a position where you can present yourself and not be regulated and connect with your fans and have no sort of barrier there in terms of what you can say. So we provide them with that online presence. We create that on that musician website. We give the artists different awesome, amazing templates that they can use if they want to do it themselves, and then we hit a really strong online marketing campaign. If you want to get in front of everybody, we have an amazing marketing team there to help get your assets in front of everybody, as well as an amazing team dedicated to supporting you with building out your merchandise and handling any sort of licensing issues you have. If you've had licensing issues on any sort of your previous distribution platforms, talk to us about it. We'll take a look at the actual situation, and a lot of times we can clear some of those licenses for you. Make sure that everything is in working order, so that way your music doesn't have to get pulled from platforms. Get some of the strikes that are removed on your YouTube channel if you have any strikes. And then introduce you to the rest of the community. There's plenty of artists out there, and it's so crazy because a lot of times artists feel like they're a little bit alone in their own bubble, like there's not other musicians just right there on the block, but a lot of times there are. And with the internet, it's amazing how well we can connect with each other. And we feel as though we have to be a beacon to attract other artists and start creating that network and growing your community. But the reality of it is you only need about 1,000 true fans in order to start making a 6-figure business and having a real career. So finding artists and DJs and producers who support you and want to help you find those 1,000 true fans. You're like, I want to help them find their 1,000 true fans. That's what we're all about, is also connecting the artists with that network of other artists who want to just promote each other, because there's a lot of us out there. We're not here just to hold each other back. We're here to build each other up.
Support each other. Yeah. And Derrick, I mean, you're fascinating. I'm going to tell you right now, you're very fascinating. And this is my 102nd episode, and I'm just very fascinated by what you're saying right now. So kudos to you and your team for what you're doing, because you're hitting every nail on the head for what I do this for. So like I said, kudos to you and your team. But there's one thing there's two things actually I want to ask you. But first, I wanted to talk to our listeners about the importance of treating people, no matter who they are in the industry, because you've interned, you've been in the business now, even though it's a short time. You know how it is when you have to treat people a certain way, right? When you're an independent artist. So talk about the importance of treating people with respect, no matter who they are.
It's crucial. You need to treat everybody with respect in this industry, because first things first, you want everyone treating you with respect. You don't want to be the person who's garnered a reputation of being disrespectful and hard to work with, and someone who people ultimately would rather avoid than be around. because how do you get any work done that way? Nobody's going to want to work with you. Your value at a level is going down because nobody wants to work with you. You might produce content that other people produce, and it's worth, let's say, just throw a number out there, $100,000, easy math, right? And divide everything by 100. If people don't want to work with you, now you're in a position where you need to reach out to other people, and you're kind of asking for work in comparison to work being brought to you. So now, although you're creating $100,000 material, your value might have just immediately got cut in half. It's $50,000 material all of a sudden. So that's just a numbers game, and it's like it doesn't make any sense from a numbers perspective. But then also, you never know who someone will be tomorrow. Today they might be Joe Schmo who you don't know about, and you're like, oh, I don't care about you. But then literally a year from now, they could be number one on the big. It doesn't even have to take a whole year. It could be 6 months, because you don't know what's going on with their project that's dropping next month, that they're telling you, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. And you're here thinking, oh, that's what everybody says. But then when they are the next big thing, and nobody really betted on them, nobody believed in them, they're going to think about the people who did believe in them. And if you're not on that list, it's going to be really hard to get back on that list as a friend, or on the green list. Right now you're on the red list. You're staying away from these people. And you don't want to be that person. You want to be somebody who has support from people, and somebody who people go to when they need support. And that's how you become somebody of importance in this industry. That's how you create a necessity for your brand, is by providing service. If you're not there to be of service, and you're not treating people like they're people, and they're really just numbers or something like that, and a way to like another step in the staircase, then you've already missed the big picture. You need to be respectful of everybody.
Absolutely. No, definitely well said. Moving forward, obviously, with your great company here, I mean, I'm already very impressed, and we're going to push this as much as we can on our label, or our platform, of course. But, the other thing you talked about is branding. And this is another thing that I find very important, because, you have to brand yourself the right way as well, because I think, especially in the United States, and I think this just as well as anybody, there's a market overseas and there's a market here in the U.S., and they're both different. I mean, overseas, people tend to, go deeper into albums, or let's say, appreciate, I guess, every song that an artist might put out. But then here in the United States, if you're an artist here in the U.S., everybody's looking for the next big thing, and then they're going to go to the next big thing when that's, kind of ran its course. So talk about the branding, because I think branding is important, because if you have a career overseas or a career here, the way you brand yourself, I think, is so important to like the longevity of your career. If you brand yourself the right way, sometimes you may need to reinvent yourself. So talk about branding a little bit.
I think it's great that you mentioned the fact that branding really is different depending on where you are. The U.S., I think it's gotten to a point where we have a lot of people following trends, like what you were talking about before, and that's in itself can be a really strong branding tactic. While we have some artists who from overseas, and they're actually avoiding trends a lot because they're not. It's not seen in the same light as it is here in America. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick. That is really interesting. Just a general overview when it comes to branding. I think it's one of the things that's overlooked a lot by artists. A lot of artists are focused on promotion, but the brand is the message that you're promoting. If you haven't determined what you represent as an artist, then it's going to be very hard to connect with a broad audience. And there's not going to be a whole lot for people to actually promote. You can always create an event. There's always going to be albums and singles and things like that. But what we found when it comes to branding, what we found is that a lot of artists that are influential nowadays they have determined the purpose for their music. They've determined, they've created a mission for their music, and they're dedicated to connecting with a specific demographic that they inspire through their story. So story-based branding has been huge in America over these last few years. And again, going back to what we were talking about before with the overseas piece, realizing we have one of our artists, Los Paligomas from the Dominican Republic. Shout out to Los Paligomas. They amazing rap duo, Black Tour, the CEO of Culture Records, the company that first founded Los Paligomas. The way that they focused on the branding that really got them huge, wasn't story-based at all. And when we started working with them, we realized the story-based branding didn't make a whole lot of sense, because a lot of people in the DR didn't actually care about the story. They only cared about entertainment. So they were like, we hit them with specifically just our stats and beautiful people, and showcase like a celebrity type lifestyle. That put us in a position where, when speaking to different Spanish brands and sponsors, they were very interested, much more so than when we created pitch decks that were focused on their story. However, when we started creating pitch decks and things like that to get sponsors for our American artists, we realized we could create a really strong story and not even really have stats yet. Some artists, they haven't even released a project yet, but we created a strong enough brand that people wanted to stand behind, that they can start getting sponsors and opportunities before a project's even been released. And that's really amazing. So we feel as though branding is crucial as an artist. And if you know what you're doing and you understand your demographic, then doors open up that you would have never really even imagined, just because people understand and resonate with why it is that you do what you do in comparison to just what it is that you do.
Yeah, that's great message. Great. Like I said, this is very, for me, it's amazing, because you're hitting everything. Like I said, I have the show, the reason I have this show. So I like I said, I appreciate everything you're saying, and all the indie artists that are out there listening, which is the main listenership of our show. I take notes, because listen to the show several times, because you're going to learn a lot. With what you guys are doing, check them out. Derrick, just amazing. Before we leave, though, I want to ask you one thing. What is your biggest piece of advice for any artist that might be listening out there from your aspect? What's your biggest piece of advice?
My biggest piece of advice would be to focus on the business. The music is always going to be there. We're all in this because we love music, but we're in the music business. It's two words. And sadly enough, the last word, the business, is 80% of this. So even if you need, support, you need to focus on the business a little bit to find those areas where you need the support. And then you can find the outlets that are there to support you, like LOUDMusic, So focus on the business. Check out loudmusic.io. And that's I think that would really be the biggest piece of advice I could give to indie artists right now, especially with the way the internet is and the opportunities that we have. I know everyone always talks about the internet like it's this holy grail, but it really at a certain level is. There were gatekeepers that determined everything when it came to music before. You wouldn't have had a chance at connecting with any sort of audience 15 years ago, unless you went through these gatekeepers, really 10 years, shoot, what is it? 2014? Really? Not, don't even have to go full 10 years, 8 years ago. It would have been game was completely different as an independent artist. We had websites where you could put out mixtapes and things like that and try to connect with people. But, that is not the same thing as what's happening nowadays.
Social media itself, I think, has gotten a lot of people recognition and fame just by social media, TikTok, Instagram, all those platforms, I think, are just, have given any artist a massive platform and an amazing way to get their music out there if you do it correctly. And so I think your business can also help with that, right?
Yeah, 100%. We can even, when you upload your music, sometimes it doesn't go to, depending on what service you use to upload your music, you may not end up on all platforms. But one of the things that we did was we made sure that we could actually get the music on every platform, things like Facebook, things like Instagram, TikTok, Shazam, Peloton, obscure places like that. But then also edit the clips, and make sure that the spot that you want to play is actually the spot that's playing on all the social media platforms. And we realized that was a huge issue for a lot of artists, where the music either wasn't there, or if it wasn't the section that they wanted to actually play to create a viral video. So we have a team there to support you and make sure it's the right place on social, or the right section of your music is playing on social media. And then a marketing team there to help you even come up with a plan, maybe get it viral, get it in front of a lot of people. We're there to support and help.
Well, I also want to talk about your, Derrick, your website, loudmusic.io. Again, loudmusic.io. So everybody go to that website and check them out. Just amazing content on there. And if anything like what we spoke about tonight, Derrick, is on that website. I mean, that's a home run for anybody that's an indie artist. And, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, because Derrick, I mean, this is exactly why we have this website. Everything you talked about just hit the nail right on the head, every single point. And again, I think I think you're out there to help the indie artists. You're an independent artist yourself. And I think, like I said, just a home run, anybody that checks you out. So make sure, if you're an indie artist, to check out Derrick and his company and all the amazing partners that he has. So again, thank you so much, Derrick, for joining us.
Dave, thank you again, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate being here at the Stage Door Show. This has been a pleasure. I hope that there's some independents who resonated with everything that we were talking about, and are ready to, get onto that next stage in their career. And like I said before, we're here to help them out, here to support.
Thank you, Derrick. Appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Thank you again, man.